Good evening. I hope you're all good today. This is also a very interesting topic and a very current one, contemporary one. The title of this video is Trump and Tariffs. Why nations need to focus on basics and core competencies. Okay, let me begin this video by talking about Trump's second presidency that was inaugurated a couple of months ago, and tariffs. Tariffs during the second presidency of Donald Trump have increased sharply, with Trump announcing a series of steep tariffs on nearly all goods imported to the US. This was more knee jerk. Okay, more whimsical and symbolic of a not so stable person. From January to April 25th, the US trade weighted average tariff rose from 2% to an estimated 25%, the highest tariff increases in over a century. Trump escalated an ongoing trade war with China, raising baseline tariff imports to an effective 145% after April 2025. More recently, a couple of days ago, I believe they have increased to 245%. And Trump says he's negotiating with China, but China doesn't seem to be warming up to his overtures. He also initiated a new trade war with Canada and Mexico by imposing 25% tariff on most goods from the countries. He also wants to annex Greenland and Canada infamously. It has also led to uh, alarming reactions from those countries, and international tourism to the US has collapsed. It's not collapsed, it has come down significantly or substantially. The announcement of this controversially termed reciprocal tariff prompted retaliation from trade partners and triggered a stock market crash. According to the Trump's administration's reciprocal tariff formula, trade deficits are viewed as inherently harmful and should be eliminated. A view that many economists rejected as biased and a flawed understanding of trade, likening it to trading everyday purchases as losses. For example, you have a country like Rwanda or Lesotho. They have transactions with the US, but they may not always be surplus or favorable to the US always. Okay, but you have competitive advantage and competitive advantage of the theory. Okay, let us again do a small rewind and go back to Trump's first presidency of 2016-2020. Okay, tariffs during the first presidency of Donald Trump involved protectionist trade initiatives against other countries, most notably China. He accused China of destroying American interests and indulging in dumping goods, which may be partially true. It principally involved tariffs on foreign imports imposed by Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States. In January 2018, Trump imposed tariffs on solar panels and washing machines of 30-50%. He also imposed tariffs on steel, aluminum, and other countries. This led to a trade war. Okay, then he was ousted from power, and Joe Biden also kept most of the tariffs in place. However, he dropped tariff on US steel and further expanded tariffs on EVs and semiconductors and other goods. Okay, from China, resulting in more tax revenue being collected from tariffs than under the first administration. Joe Biden also imposed duties on Chinese goods such as solar panels, and this is a marked departure from US advocacy of free trade. Many of previous elder presidents, because it suited the US at the time, it was unequivocally it was ranked as the world's number one superpower. Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush also promoted free trade. Okay, these presidents championed open markets and trade agreements like NAFTA to promote economic growth and competitiveness. Dumping is a very important term in economics. Dumping in economics refers to the practice of selling goods in a foreign market at a lower price than in the domestic market or at a price below production costs. It is essentially a form of price discrimination that can harm domestic interests in the importing country. Okay, so price discrimination is followed. Sometimes different goods are sold at different prices in different markets. It is sold below the market price. It is sometimes sold even before the below the market production cost. Okay, this is predatory to destroy the competition. They want to do it on predatory basis. Okay, and this can harm other industries in other countries. Okay, you have, as I told you, predatory dumping to drive out other companies from market. Persistent dumping. This also is done to drive out other companies' market. Reverse dumping, where the foreign market has higher demand, low prices. Okay, you have many types of anti-dumping laws, such as anti-dumping measures, anti-dumping duties, etc. And this also involves countervailing duties and anti-dumping measures are trade remedies used by other countries to protect their domestic industry from unfair competition. Okay, you have anti-dumping investigations, anti-dumping duties, price anti-dumping, etc. There are many different disadvantages of high tariffs in the long run. First thing is it disincentivizes international trade, reduces the quantum of international trade, shuts a nation off from international trade. Okay, it makes it autarkic. Cost push inflation, cost of inputs rise, stagflation is the result. Stagflation is stagnation plus inflation. Higher chances of recession are there. Okay, higher input costs increase output costs. Higher input costs reduce competitiveness and market share. There is an incentive to move production overseas, capital movement and capital misallocation takes place. There is less choice for the customer. No competitive advantage is made use of. No competitive advantage is made use of. Companies take advantage and produce shoddy quality goods. Technological stagnation results. Global GDP growth may decline since international trade is a major driver of economic growth. This has been borne out amply in the past couple of decades or so. Less people may be pulled out of poverty than presently. Past couple of decades, many people have been pulled out of poverty in developing countries. This process may slow down, may reduce government revenue in some cases, reduce a long term nation's long term competitiveness, unless applied strategically. For example, South Korea tax imported rice only for a limited uh, period because it allowed them to become their local farmers to become more competitive. Okay, you also have protectionism. Protectionism is the policy of protecting industries against foreign competitions by means of tariff subsidies, import quotas, or other restrictions or handicaps placed on the imports of foreign competitors. India followed a closed economy from model from 1947 to 1991. High tariffs encouraged shoddy goods at home, and no technology upgradation was encouraged. Okay, technological upgradation was encouraged. India's share of world trade declined sharply between 1950 and 1991, making it a negligible player in international trade. In 1890, similarly, USA increased tariffs on many goods to 49.5%. These were spearheaded by William McKinley. He was known as the Napoleon of protectionism. This led to a major economic recession in 1893. Trump apparently regards him to be his hero. Okay. You also have economic autarky. Autarky is an economic system of self-sufficiency and limited trade. A country is said to be in a complete state of autarky if it has a closed economy, which means it does not engage in international trade with any other country. We also have economic dirigism. It's the direction of the economic activities dictated by the states. Economic self-sufficiency. A nation wants to produce everything on its own. Import substitution. A nation wants to produce everything instead of importing. This was followed by Nehru. Competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is favorable position that an organization seeks to be more profitable than its rivals. This was proposed by the management guru Michael Porter in 1985. Okay, and to gain a competitive advantage, an organization which demonstrate a greater comparative or differential value than its competitors and to it convey that information to the desired target market. However, this same concept can be extended to countries also. Okay, it can be used by a country as well. You have the theory of comparative advantage. It is an economic model that touts the advantage of one country over others in producing a particular goods. For example, producing oats or broccoli in India is uneconomical and unviable, given that they are not suited to the Indian climate. A good can be said to be produced at a lower relative opportunity cost and autarky price, at a lower relative marginal cost prior to trade. Okay, and comparative advantage describes the economic reality and gains from trade where individuals, firms, or nations which arise from differences, the factor endowments. Different countries have different factor endowments. Okay, and they have different states of technology. Of course, that's converging. Okay, right now because of globalization. Factor endowments are the resources the country can use for its economic activity, such as land, minerals, capital, and labor. Countries with large or diverse factor endowments can produce goods more efficiently and effectively than countries with smaller factor endowments. David Ricardo developed the classical theory of comparative advantage way back in 1870, 208 years ago, to explain why countries engage in international trade even when non-countries workers are more efficient at producing every single good than workers in other countries. By the way, David Ricardo was a British economist, an economist and former member of Parliament of the United Kingdom. Therefore, all countries cannot produce goods at the same cost. All countries cannot produce goods efficiently or effectively. International trade boosts the world economy. Factors of production vary from country to country. Factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These are the resources to create goods and services, and these are the building blocks of an economy. For example, we had the Great Depression, which was a severe economic downturn between 1929, end of 1929, I think November, October, and 1939, marked by widespread employment, poverty, and drastic declines in industrial production and international trade. Okay, 20s, there was a technological boom, cars, airplanes, electricity, telephones, cinemas, movies, etc. And the Great Depression had significant impact on USA and other countries as well. It led to the collapse of the banking system in the USA. It led to a large increase in unemployment. It was prolonged. It had a global impact. It was deep. It had dire social and cultural consequences. Herbert Hoover was the president at the time. He adopted a half-hearted approach to the Great Depression. He tried to encourage voluntary cooperation, increase federal spending at least marginally. Some public works projects were initiated, not in a big way. Okay, and there was a lot of criticism of Herbert Hoover's response is very lukewarm and half-hearted. And as the Great Depression continued to worsen, Hoover's unpopularity also increased. Okay, shanty towns were called Hoovervilles. Empty flags turned outside, pockets turned out outside in were called Hoover flags. Okay, he also infamously launched a smooth Hawley Tariff Act to protect American farmers and increased import tariffs. However, other countries also retaliated, and US was vulnerable because it was in the midst of a depression. It slid further into depression. Okay, then came this savior, the manna from heaven, Franklin D. Roosevelt, also known as FDR. He was the 32nd president of the United States from 33 to 1933 1945. Initially, he fought the depression, and later he helped steer the U.S. During the second course of the Second World War. He was the longest serving U.S. president, also one of the most respected and admired by the American people. And he also, during the first 100 days in office from 33 to 35, in 1000, he introduced the first New Deal, which focused on 3 Rs. These were relief for the unemployed and for the poor, recovery of the economy back to normal levels, and reforms of the financial system to prevent a repeat depression. Okay, therefore, recovery from the Great Depression was gradual and slow. It happened completely only after the Second World War, and there was a minor recession again in 1937. Therefore, nations must focus on foundational competencies. Foundational competencies are fundamental skills and qualities essential for individuals to succeed in various aspects of life. But this is an anthropological approach. I have written extensively about it. Please read. Okay, I published several scores of papers on it, and these are often considered universal and form the basis for further learning and development. Examples include communication, problem solving, teamwork, and originality. Just like a marketer focuses on USPs, your USPs can stand for unique selling point or unique selling proposition, a marketing term that is used to describe what makes a product or service stand out from the competition. Just like a company's focus on core missions, you have certain universals like better education, invest in pedagogy. I've written extensively on pedagogy. Pedagogical theory must be modernized, improved. Okay, pedagogy itself needs to be modernized. It's very Eurocentric and straight as I've written. Please read all my papers and my videos. And developing countries must take the lead here. We have AI based education, we have automation education, a lot of new concepts are coming which can, and skilling, on the job and out of the job skilling, which cannot play a major role. We also have to make investments in innovativeness. Innovative thinking is the ability to develop new ideas and solutions to problems. It's a creative and flexible way of thinking that involves being open to new possibilities and taking risks also. And we have the Global Innovative Index developed by the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO. It was started in 2007 by INSEAD and World Business, a British magazine. In until 2021, it was published by WIPO in partnership with Cornell University, INSEAD, and other organizations and universities. And it is based on both subjective and objective data derived from several countries, including the International Telecommunications Union, the World Bank, and the World Economic Forum. India's ranking is rather low. We also need investment in science, inculcation of a scientific type, a gradual transition to a less religious society. It happens slowly. Mind orientation, mind space, thought worlds, world use. I've written extensively about this. Social sciences can play a major role. We need an anthropological and social sciences revolution. Our potential has not yet been fully realized. We need investment in technology. Like everyone has mobile phones nowadays. Other what do you say, niggles need to be sorted out, like electricity generation, rural infrastructure, etc. I have written extensively about anthropological economics. We need bottom-up development models. Okay, I have written about controllable factors and non-controllable factors from anthropological standpoint. cultural limit, anthropological limit, cultural factors, linguistic factors, religious factors, mind orientation, cultural orientations. Developing countries must make themselves strong. That is the only way. Okay, respect is demanded now, not heard. I look over this situation where Eurocentric paradigms are ditched and all countries contribute to science and to models, to economic development models, and to science as well. Decisions may come and go, but foundational competencies will stand us in good stead. Tariffs may come and go, but foundational competencies alone will stand us in good stead. Sanctions may come and go, but foundational competencies alone will stand us in good stead. This end my video.